I'm about to share an interview with Suzanne. She is my TikTok friend, and I just felt like she had such a great story. I hope that it's the first of many to come because I just love talking to people and hearing their story. And it's just, I don't know, it's why I do this. Not just to talk to you, although that's one of my favorite parts, but to share with you the things I'm going through and the things other people are going through. I want people to speak their own truth through their own voice, and I want to give them a platform to do it. And I gave Suzanne one, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I can tell you this. We talked about 3 hours. Only 2 hours was able to be recorded. Something happened on her end. It's a riveting story and it's Suzanne's. So I'm going to share it. I'm going to give it the time it deserves. Please enjoy the story. And if you like this, there's something really new and exciting. They now have come out with a text me link at the bottom of my show notes. If you scroll down and you read and you can see it's something that says text me. If you hit that link, it will actually text my cell phone. It's only one-way communication, so I can only receive, I can't text back. But you can tell me a show idea. You can tell me if you liked a show. You can tell me if you didn't like a show. I mean, it's not the greatest text I want to receive, but you have that option. So it's just a way to communicate, and I will do a shout out on the show and read your text. So, yay! We now have a way to communicate, and love you, miss you, bye.
The Love You Miss You Bye podcast. Let's inspire each other. I figure we should tell everybody how this all came about. This is Suzanne, and she is my TikTok friend. I happened to post, I think it was the video where I talk about 40 and up and all the changes we're going through. And I wanted to try and build a community so that we could kind of have a place that we can all talk, which really stemmed from they have, because I study, they were saying there's a new page you can go to and find out what the trending topics are. Just put in the hashtag that you want to see and see if it's trending and what's trending in that category. Well, I put in over 50, I put in over 40, and there wasn't a lot out there that I really could connect to. I mean, there were a few diamonds in there, but overall, I was kind of disappointed that there wasn't a place and a group for us. And so that prompted me to post that video, and you jumped in there in my comments. You were one of the people that jumped in, and I honestly, I don't do that with everybody. It was weird because I stopped, I saw it, and then I went right to your page. And that's when I'm like, oh, first of all, she sounds like she's from Jersey. So I felt like my friend here. I was like, I want to know more about her. And as I started to watch some of your stories, I learned a little bit. And the whole point of Love You Miss You Bye is to talk to people with real stories, not really the famous people. That's never been my goal. And I was like, she's somebody I want to talk to. And I think that she's got a really good story that of triumph. I know you're going through it right now, but it is an everyday story. First of all, you are like a little ray of sunshine. So
Thank you.
you really are. You really are.
Thank you.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
So, my name is Suzanne. I just turned 52 in February. I'm not from New Jersey. I am from Long Island, New York. I now live here in Fort Payne, Alabama with my childhood sweetheart. I was married
Mm.
once before for 18 years. I have three children, but my husband and I dated when we were kids. He was 18 and I was 20, little cradle robber. And we dated from 1992 to 1997. Sometimes when your parents tell you no, stay away from somebody, it makes you want to go toward the bad boy. I sadly made a mistake, and but without that mistake, I wouldn't have the three children that I have. So I was married for 18 years, with him for 23.
Oh,
Thankfully,
wow.
thankfully divorced. It was a very traumatic, toxic, abusive. I was cheated on for the entire marriage, and it was sad because I had a small house and my kids knew about it. And I don't talk very much about it on TikTok because My kids are there. I never want to, disparage their father, but right now I really don't care.
How long were you married before you realized that he was cheating on you?
I knew before I got married that he was cheating, but I was already
Okay.
pregnant.
Okay.
So my husband John and I, the one that I brag about in all my TikTok videos, we broke up in 1997. I got pregnant, and I said, okay, well, I guess the right thing to do is to get married. But he was already
Mhm.
cheating on me, and I said, well, I can't go running home to my parents. I'm not going to prove mommy and daddy right that, to stay away from him. And so I stayed, and it was always, I love you, I'm sorry. I love you, I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. And my kids were, traumatized a lot by the things that they had seen and heard. I didn't have the strength in myself to get up and leave. I was a stay-at-home mom for 17 years. Before I had kids, I was a dental
Wow.
assistant, and the world went on without me. So I had tried to get jobs, but I couldn't because he was never home. One day he came home and finally said that he was leaving. And it was like, yeah, it felt like the wind was taken out of my sail, but it was also like, oh my God, like this is over.
Thank you.
This is finally over. He left for somebody 15 years younger, so
Mm.
which is very odd. So when I was having my son, she was graduating high school. So that's kind of weird. She's not much older than my oldest one. But I felt like now I can find out who I am and what I want to do. After I got divorced, I stayed single for a year. I needed to find out what I wanted to do with my life. And I always had this knack for wanting to care for people and help people. So I became a medical assistant. So after a year of being single and finding out what I wanted to do and going to school, I yet again, because it's all I knew, got into another toxic, abusive relationship. We moved in together and it was
How did you
horrible.
meet him?
So when I was still living in the home that I had, he was the security guard for the development that I lived in. And so where we lived in Pennsylvania, like we didn't have individual bus stops. Everybody had to drive to the bus, and the bus would come to one big giant parking lot and pick up the kids. So he was the security guard there. So he would come over and say good morning and, watch the kids and stuff. And so, he was flirting with me for a little bit. We started talking, and then I don't know, I just said go for it, and I said, hey, like, maybe one night we should go for drinks. And
Hmm.
because he made it seem like he was what I was looking for, like they
Of
trap you.
course.
They
Love
trap you.
bombing.
They
Hmm.
exactly love bombing, showed me all the
Hmm.
things that I never had in my marriage. And then I was stuck, yet again, stuck.
How long?
And almost 4 years. But
Yeah.
the last year of our relationship, we were just roommates. One day I'm on Instagram, and I didn't know that you could see, because I've said, several times I'm not tech savvy. So I was like, what is that little dot up on? It was a message from John. And he said, hey there, stranger, from, like years ago. Because years ago, I had sent him a message saying, hey, guess what? Like, I got divorced. What's going on with you? Ha ha, kind of message. But it was when it would go to the other folder. If you weren't friends, you would never know. And he never
Oh
read my
yeah.
message. He never read
Okay, I
my
remember that.
message. So he didn't know that I was trying to reach out to him. So one
Okay.
day he looked and saw, and he's like, hey, what's going on here? And I remember it was his birthday, and it was December 30th, and it was of 2020. And so he said, if you ever want to talk, give me a call. And I picked up the phone. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about it. I just picked up the phone and I was like, John, I need to talk to you. And that's where it all began. And I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist
Hmm.
told me, you need to fake it to make it. You need to get out of this relationship because the old boyfriend was putting his hands on me.
Okay.
Uh, and I was terrified. I was terrified. I was
S-
scared for my life.
Can can we touch on this, or is this an
Yeah.
area that you don't feel
No, no,
comfortable with?
absolutely. Like I said in all
Okay.
my videos, like I'm very open. I have nothing to hide because I don't think that I've done anything wrong.
So everything was fine in the beginning of that relationship, and it was a lot of love bombing. When did you realize that this could when did he first do anything abusive?
The funny thing is that so he was really like the first boyfriend that I had after, being with my ex-husband for 23 years. So I didn't know anything different. I just thought that that pattern of behavior was normal. I thought everybody lived that life of the yelling, the
Mhm.
fighting, the screaming. Stupidly, I let him move into my house because I needed help paying rent, paying my mortgage
Yeah.
because my husband moved out and basically said, "You're on your own. Take me to court." And so that was a whole battle in itself. And so he moved in after a month, and I'm really like, it's still something that I regret. I should have never have done it, but I was like so enamored by the way that I was being treated, like the you're so beautiful, I'm so lucky to have you, like I've never met anybody like you before, all the things that my heart wanted to hear. And I'm
I've done
so
it too, Suzanne.
yeah,
I've done it
and
too.
it's when I look back at it, it's so humiliating to me as a woman that I allowed somebody to do that to me. But I was in my early 40s, and they say as you get older, you learn, and I think that like even at early 40s, you still have like this young mind of like, I just want love. I just want someone
Mhm.
to love me and just to hold me and just to tell me everything's going to be okay. So it was about after 2 or 3 months where I started to notice the verbal aggression. He would just, tell me to shut up. He would like, and I don't know, can I curse? Like, he would
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
say,
yeah.
okay, okay, okay. He would say, stop being such a fucking bitch. And I'm like, I'm not even doing anything. Like, I had gotten upset because he had taken a plastic bowl and left it on top of my hot stove and burnt the whole bottom of it. I said, I
Mm.
can't believe that you just burnt my bowl. He goes, it's a fucking plastic bowl. Get the fuck over it. And I was like, okay. Like, I started to feel fear. And again, was like, okay, I'm just gonna like crawl inside myself and just be quiet and not step outside the line. And then it was,
So he was
I'm
he was
sorry.
verbally abusive first.
At
He was
yes,
verbally
it was a
abusive first.
verbal
Okay.
abuse at first.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so it turns out that my house was in my ex-husband's name and he had stopped paying the mortgage. I did not know. And then I get a knock on the door from the sheriff saying, "You've got to get out." And I was like, "What?" So
Oh no.
I had taken my ex-husband to court, and he said, "No, I'm not paying the mortgage and I'm not signing it over to you." And the house that I had for 15 years, the house that my son learned how to walk in, the house that my parents used to come visit me in, the memories that I had with my mom were gone. And I had to learn that the memories go with you. It's not in the house, it's not in the
Mhm.
things. And it took me a long time to get over that. So we found a new place to live. And
Can I ask you something?
yes,
And I hate to interrupt because
that's
you're
okay.
really you're. You said the memories you had with your mom. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious. Is so your mom's not with us anymore?
No, my May
Okay.
19th will be 15 years that my mom died. She woke up one day. My mom had lots of health issues of stroke, like she had mini strokes. And then May 19th of 2009, I get a phone call from my younger sister at 5:30 in the morning. And at that time, she had a dog named Harley. And when your brain doesn't want to hear trauma or remember trauma, it kind of turns it into something else. So I remember the phone ringing at 5:30 in the morning, and it's my younger sister who is just my best friend screaming in the phone, "Harley's dead, Harley's dead." And I was like, "Why are you calling me at 5:30 in the morning to tell me that your damn dog is dead?" And
Yeah.
she's like, "Suzanne, mommy is dead." And I was like, "What?" Like it was I can still remember that feeling of my head's just spinning. Like, what are you talking about? So my mom had woken up. It was like 5:30 in the morning, or like 5:15 probably. My middle sister was there. She had to go. Both my sisters are educators, and I think my sister had to go to some kind of a conference. So she stayed at my parents' house, sadly, that night because it was closer to where she had to go. So my
Hmm.
parents had dogs, and my mom said the dogs have to go out. My dad said, I'll get it. And my mom said, no, no, it's okay. I got it. And she walked out of her bedroom on the second floor, walked out of the bedroom, took a few steps, and had a massive stroke at the top of the stairs. And thank God, She didn't know what was coming because her body fell down the stairs.
Oh
And I
no.
remember my father saying the only thing that he heard was, "Oh God." She knew that something was happening to her body, but she died right there. And her body came tumbling down the stairs, and they had just had their house redone, and my mom's head um, hit the tile, the marble floor. And without being too graphic, if you could just imagine what that scene was like. And I remember them telling me that my poor dad tried doing CPR, but it was too late. She was gone. So
Oh my
it'll,
gosh.
yeah, it was very traumatic. And for me, I was at that point 2 hours away. I was literally right over the border of Jersey into Pennsylvania, and it was a 2 hour drive to New York. And I remember I said, I want to say goodbye to my mother. Please don't let them take her. I want to say goodbye to my mother. In the movies and on TV shows, they make it like they're laying in a hospital bed and they look like they're at peace and you get to go. That was not my experience, and nobody told me. We got there as fast as we could, and they said, "Are you sure you want to go in?" And I said, "Yes, I want to say goodbye to my mother." She was not in a hospital bed. It was not like that. It was like she was a museum showpiece behind a piece of glass. So I couldn't touch her. They didn't clean her up. She still had all the remnants of her, the blood and everything, and all the blood
That
that was
is
in her hair.
traumatic, Suzanne.
And I wish that I never went in there because 15 years later, that's the memory that I have. And I just remember banging on the glass. I mean, I'm sure it was very traumatic for my father and my sister seeing her, but like I had this image in my head of being able to go in, to see my mom laying in a hospital bed and kiss her. And we had a very, my mom and I had a very tough relationship, very tough. There were times in my life when I didn't speak to her, but she made up for it by being a really good grandmother to my kids. That I'm thankful for. Yeah.
So is your dad still with us?
Yeah. I don't speak to my father. Men can't be alone. And we said, because so my parents had just celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary, and then my mom died a month later. So my dad came here from Israel when he was a teenager, met my mom, and they were together their whole lives. So we said, you are not to date anybody for a year. Like, you need to respect your wife. Like, you have to do that. So it was a little bit short of a year. And I'm like, okay, Dad, like, do you want me to help you get on dating sites? Like, I'll set this. He's like, no, 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 no. And I said, Dad, like, we don't want you to be alone. So a friend of his from work invited us to a 4th of July barbecue where a gold digger was told the story of my dad. Like, at that time, because I don't speak to him now, but like, my dad had money. I don't have money. My dad had money because he was smart, and as he grew up, he knew as like a Jewish man, coming really from nothing and coming here, on a boat to Ellis Island. You work, you save, you work, you save. So she got her grips into my father, and my sisters and I kept saying, no, like, don't do this, don't do this. She wants you for your money, don't do this. A few months later, she said, you should sell your house. And we said, there's something not right here. Like, mommy would never want you to sell this house. And you said, when, like, mommy dies, that, and if you pass, this house is for me and my sisters to do what we choose to do with. She wound up just becoming a problem. An alcoholic. My dad would occasionally have like a Heineken when he would barbecue. My dad wasn't a drinker. He wasn't a smoker. Like, we don't come from that background. And then all of a sudden, my father started drinking bottles of wine with her and getting drunk. I would go visit my father on the weekends so my dad could see my kids. They loved my father. And we would go visit, and he would leave us to go hang out with her. And I'm like, why am I here? I remember the night that started it all. I could hear my father trashing me to her on the phone, and trashing my ex-husband. Yeah. And
What?
yeah, because my father thought if he turned the TV up, he could talk louder, that I wouldn't hear him over the TV. So back then I had pretty good hearing, and I remember yeah, and I can remember standing in the bathroom, and he was right, but calling my ex-husband a piece of shit, saying that he was, not worth anything. But I was still married to him at the time. This was the father of my children, saying that I was lazy, I was a stay-at-home mom. Like I couldn't work because my husband traveled for work and I couldn't put my kids in daycare. I couldn't afford to. I had three of them. So I stayed
Mm-hmm.
home. And how, he was sick of feeling like he had to take care of me. And I was like, what are you saying? So I opened up his door and I said, I really don't appreciate the things that you're saying to your girlfriend on the phone about me. And my father was never an aggressive person. Like when my mom would hit me and stuff, my father would always go upstairs and close the door, and I would cry and scream for him. And he never would, he would just say, I'm not getting involved, leave me out of it. So I'm not used to my father being verbally aggressive. So he came out of his bedroom door, and my son was 4, and he was yelling, Poppy, stop, Poppy, stop. And my father said, um, this is my fucking house. I want you and your fucking kids, your dog and your piece of shit husband, and I want you all to get the fuck out of my house. And I said, are you serious right now? So my ex-husband was downstairs because he was getting ready to go to work because he still worked on Long Island. And he came upstairs and he's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And my father lit him up, telling him what he thinks about him. And he kicked us all out of the house at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't talk to my
But what
father for
was his
five.
reasoning? Like, I don't
Because,
understand that. Like, if
be, because he felt that that I was eavesdropping. I'm like, I wasn't eavesdropping. You're talking so loud, I can hear you over the TV. Like, if you want to shit talk me, wait until I'm not here. So I think he was more embarrassed that he got caught.
of
And because
course.
she's such an aggressive human being, she is very volatile. She had even put her hands on my sister at one point. So she's very volatile. And she probably said, you better go, whatever. Um, and I said, if I leave, this is the last time you're going to see me. And he said, I don't give a shit. I said, what about your grandkids? And he said nothing. He went in his room and he closed the door. So my son was 4 and he was crying, Poppy, no, like I love you, Poppy. And that broke my heart. I had to wake up my
Mm-hmm.
2 daughters who were sleeping downstairs, and we packed up at 4:30 in the morning and headed back home. And I didn't talk to my father for 5 years. Next thing I know, I find out that he was getting married.
To
My
that
sister called
woman.
him to that woman. So then I found out that he sold my mother's house and moved into her condo. Nothing of my mother's was allowed. Like she's so crazy that like my father wasn't. They're not allowed. He wasn't allowed to have a microwave. Like she's one of those. She's a motivational speaker, but she's an alcoholic. Talking about my family is very hard because I don't want to, like, I feel bad kind of exposing, but at another point, like, I don't care because, like, he did this. So
Well,
five
let me
years
let
went,
me interject. Let me
sure.
interject there because you touch on a really good point. I also have the same type of thing. I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of trauma. I have a lot of with exes and stuff like that in my life, and it's really hard to talk about that, knowing that you could potentially hurt somebody else with your story. But
Right.
I also realize it's my story too. Being on the podcast, it's really helped me kind of open up and kind of take that weight off of me that's been sitting there for a really long. It's like
Right.
therapy.
Yeah, that's why I got on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. Because I didn't
Yeah.
know how else to do it. Because I mean, I have Facebook, but only people that I know in my real life or my family and my family that live in Israel. That's my way of keeping in touch with people. I don't just add people for the sake of adding them. I need to know you personally.
Mm-hmm.
So getting on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
was very hard for me, but that's why I did it because I felt like I had so much to say and nobody to say it to. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. 5 years went by, and my sisters had told me that when it they went to the wedding for my father, and they kept saying, Dad, you don't have to do this, because he kept saying, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this.
Oh.
And yeah, and I should have known, when, because when I got married, I kept saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. And they're like, it's just nerves. It's just butterflies. I'm like, no, I really get, you know what? My mother always told me, listen to your gut instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to your gut. When I got married, my parents hated him so much that they didn't come to my wedding. Anyway, so 5 years had gone by. And when I told my sister leaving, she's like, I think you need to call daddy. And I was like, no, I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. Like, no, he's dead to me. And she said, Suzanne, this is the time where you need your family. And I said, I don't think I can do it. And she's like, listen, I'm having a birthday party. You should come to New York. And I was like, oh God, this is going to kill me. So it was like a big pumpkin patch. And I kept looking at my father. I'm like, oh, I'm going to vomit. I know. I just felt so sick because I haven't seen him or spoken to him in 5 years.
Yeah. Hmm.
So we're walking through the field looking for pumpkins, and my father said, "Should I say it now or should I wait until later?" And I said, "If you have something to say, just say it." And he said, "I told you so." And I said, "Dad, I stuck it out for 18 years, for 23 years together. There's no I told you so. I did it." And he's like, "Okay, so it's over. So now what?" And I said, "You're my father, and I love you. And you chose not to speak to me. You gave up your daughter for your girlfriend." We started visiting and reconnecting, and but his wife is a very big raging alcoholic. She could drink 2, 3 bottles of wine by herself like it was water. My dad is now, his birthday was just this past March, so I think he just turned 76. I went to New York last year, no, it'll be 2 years, when my daughter had my grandson. And I told my father, I said, "We're all going to be at my sister's house. We would love for you to come, but is not welcome. Nobody wants her here." Because there were times where, like, my sisters had told me they tried having an intervention with my father to say, "Listen, like, this is not good. Like, you're drinking because of her. She causes fights with the family. She's mean to the kids. She grabbed my sister. My sister had a broken wrist at that point. And she grabbed my sister by the wrist and said to her, 'Listen to me, little girl. If anything happens to your father, you're not coming to my house. You're not getting anything from this house.'" She's sick. Her own
Mm.
children don't speak to her.
Okay, that tells you
She's
everything.
sick. She's one of
Hmm.
those who come and divide and then conquer. So my dad randomly started having health issues, started losing his memory, wasn't able to walk. Turns out my dad had encephalitis. He had some fluid on the brain. And
Oh,
he wasn't
okay.
himself. He couldn't remember things. And then
Hmm.
his temperament started to change, and he was becoming very aggressive again and very hostile. And my sisters were like, "Listen, like, we're done. Like, we're trying to help you. You want no part of it." He cut everybody off for his wife again. And I said, I
Was he
can't do
that
this
in
again.
love with her? Like, what did she have over him? She just, I don't understand. Giving up
We
your whole
don't
family.
know. We don't know what she has over him.
So the whole family
The whole
sees it.
family, the whole family sees it,
Okay.
but my father. When I decided to pick up and move here to Alabama, I wanted to say goodbye to my father. We were not welcome at the house because Connie didn't want us there. And I said, "There's no way you're going to stop me from saying goodbye to my father." And for John to see my dad, who he hasn't seen in almost 30 years. And we wanted to go for hibachi and sushi for dinner. She said no. And your father can't go either. So I was like, this is not happening. So my younger sister, John and I were just dating at the time. Well, dating again at the time. And my sister went over there and we opened that door and walked right in. And my dad
Oh,
was like, "I love you. Like, I'm so glad that you guys are back together. Like, I hated so happy for you." And then she came home from wherever she was and she was pissed that we were in the house because she thought that we were going to be getting to my father's mind, convincing him of what she's
how can
doing.
this woman be a motivational speaker and
Oh, I don't know.
completely keep this family
She
apart?
brainwashed
It doesn't.
because she brainwashed him. My sisters and I have said that she has done something to him. She has brainwashed him so much so to separate him so when he dies, she gets everything. Because my dad had already had a will, and he said, when my mother died, "Don't worry, that God forbid, when I die, you and your sisters will be." I said, "I'd rather have you alive. I don't care about what you're leaving me. I'd rather have you alive. I don't care about any of that." Turns out that she had him change his will.
Of course.
So if she can keep him away from the family and not have it spilled, so John was there and was like, "Nice to meet you." And she's like, "What are you doing in my house?" And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, you were not gonna speak to him this way. Like, no." And then my dad, like, it was like his robot, turned on, and he was like, "I think you should go." And my sister, we were both crying, like, "Dad, don't you see? Don't you see that she's controlling you? Like, we're your children. We're your children. How do you not see what's happening here? You need to go. You need to go." And she was like, "Get the fuck out of my house." And my husband was like, "What is happening here? Who is this person?" And I said, "I told you. I told you." So we went out for dinner. My dad was not allowed to go. And then a few hours later, we get a phone call. My dad said, I don't care what she says, I'm coming. And we were like, yes, like he's
Okay,
coming.
good.
And he had the best time. He's getting,
He
sake
came.
shot out his mouth from the hibachi guy. And he had a great time. And I have pictures of that night of crying, saying goodbye to my dad because, I was moving to Alabama. It's not like I could just drive around the block to see him.
I got chills. I'm so glad he came.
Yeah, he came. And that was the last time that I saw my father. So my daughter got pregnant and she was having a baby and she was still living in Pennsylvania at the time. And my family was on Long Island. So we wanted my dad to come and visit. And we said, Dad, we want to see you so bad, but we think it'd be better if doesn't come. And he said, That's my wife. And I said, But Dad, she causes nothing but stress and upsets everybody. And I'm only here for a few days and I just want to spend time with you. And he said, No, I'm not coming without my wife. I said, Okay. And then I never heard from him again. And then I was diagnosed with cancer. He never called.
He
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 knew.
knows.
He knew. When I found out that I had cancer, I had to call my sisters because at first I wasn't sure if it was genetic because my father's father, she died when I was 13 of breast cancer. She had a hard life. She was in Auschwitz. She was in a concentration camp while she was pregnant with my father. It was a whole thing. And she died of breast cancer. So I wasn't sure if it was genetic at the time. And I said, I need to tell you guys something. I have breast cancer. So they had told my father.
They still have a relationship with him. They still call him.
I wouldn't call it a relationship. I would call it a once in a while, he'll send a text. He really just couldn't care
He's checked
about
out.
anybody.
He's checked out.
He's completely
Hmm.
checked out. Yeah. So one of my sisters said, I spoke to Daddy and I told him and I said, listen to me right now. Don't tell him anything else because now that he knows and he didn't reach out weeks later, I don't want him to know anything. It's not his place. It's not his business. I want him to know nothing. I don't know if he's ever asked. I don't want to know because no matter what, and no matter how old I am, for your oldest daughter to be diagnosed with breast cancer, to know that you watched your own mother suffer with it and to die from it, to not say, no matter what, you're still my daughter. Nothing. Radio silence.
That is
So
heartbreaking.
this past Christmas, I was like, the sheer audacity. I get a card in the mail from my father. Merry Christmas, right? So, yeah, we're Jewish, but like when I was a kid, we still celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah, but because we wanted to be like everybody else and get Christmas presents. And
Hmm.
um,
I did
he
too.
sent, yeah, he sent me a Christmas card, to Suzanne and John. Merry Christmas. Hope all is well. Here's $100 check. I wanted to vomit. The
Hmm.
the pit of my stomach opened up and I was so angry and I said, you're out of your fucking mind. So I said, I'm going to take the time and I'm going to compose a letter. So I wrote him a letter and
Get
I
it out.
said, thank
Hmm.
you, but no thank you. How dare you reach out to me after I've gone through cancer? How dare you send me $100 check a year later, even after I got married? Not a card, not a congratulations, nothing. After everything that I've been through, I don't want anything from you. So here's your check. Don't ever, ever reach out to me again. I'm done with you. Put it in an envelope. I went to the post office and I said, I need to make sure that this envelope lands in his hands only. Because if she gets a hold of it, he won't get it. So they made it so it had to be signed by the person it was addressed to.
Good.
And then I got the thing back saying that it was signed by my father because I know his signature. My whole
Hmm.
life I lived that way with him not being
That's what I
there.
was going to
But
ask you.
yeah,
He's not emotional. He's not connected like that. It,
no,
kind of a
no.
stoic. Okay.
My mother was, and I hate to speak ill about her, but she was, she had a tough life, Brooklyn kid, toxic family. She had a brother that used to beat her up, and he pushed her through a window, and back in my mom was born in 51, so back in those days, we used to beat the crap out of your kids, so it's all my mother knew. So my mother used to beat the crap out of me. Anytime she would get her hands on me, I would scream for my father to help or to get her off of me. And he would say, leave me out of it, and would go upstairs and close the bedroom. Yeah, he was never there. My father's way of being there was to just throw money at you, or like with,
Which is what he just did.
yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't even see it that way. That's what he
Mm-hmm.
just did, is by sending me that check. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need your money. I've got my own money. I may be out of work right now because of my whole situation, but I've got my own money. I don't need your measly $100 check. Hope all is well. Hope all is well. I just went through breast cancer, you moron. No, I'm not well.
He doesn't see it as doing anything wrong. He thinks the way to connect is to send money and let you know he hears you.
It makes me sad because, he is older. He is not in good health. And I know that one day I'm going to be without my father, and everybody says, you know, um, that's your father. And I'm like, I understand that, but there's a difference between being a father and being a dad.
100%. Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't my dad.
It's how he made
So,
you feel. If he's
right,
toxic to you in your world, that's it. It's about
right,
you.
right.
It's
And I'm grown now, I'm not a little kid that, has to worry, and, I don't have to turn to him when I need, you know, uh, Dad, I need new tires on my car and I can't afford the $400. Now they're like $800, but like, Dad, I can't afford this, or I can't pay my bill. Can you help me? I don't need that. What I needed was a father after my mother died. And he turned to somebody that my mother would be spinning in her canister if she knew, if she knew, because my mother
oh yeah,
hated women like her. She's a vulture, and we know that she's just waiting for my dad to die.
that's heartbreaking.
When my sisters would go
What?
visit him in the hospital, his wife would say, they're not allowed in. And my sisters said, the fuck, we're not allowed in. That's our father.
Back to your relationship.
Mhm.
You were telling me he started to verbally be abusive.
Oh,
And so
the old
we
boyfriend. I guess they see things and act in ways that they bring home with them. So I started
like
being on,
military, similar to the
yes,
PTSD type
yeah,
stuff. Okay.
yeah. So I started getting on the receiving end of that. So it started becoming more of like, grabbing me by the arm. At that time, just my son was living with me, and I think he was probably 14 or 15. And my son's a big kid. I mean, I'm 5'3", and my son is probably 6 foot at this point, but he's very big and stocky. And he was living with me, and he would say, I don't like him. I hate him. I don't like him. I don't like the way he
Mm.
talks to you. And then it started becoming more of like little shoves. And I would say, okay, stop putting your hands on me. Oh, stop, cut it out. Like, I'm just playing. I'm like, no, you're not playing. Like, you're knocking me off my feet. Stop putting your fucking hands on me. Then it just became, he started calling me the C word. And I was like, no, sir,
We don't
no,
use that word around here.
no, 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 no. You are not going to
Uh-huh.
start calling me that. There was no intimacy in the relationship, like none. And that was hard because, I was in my prime. I was, like in my early 40s, and
Yeah.
there was none. Let's just say he had problems. So it was,
Got it.
you know what I mean? You see me?
Got
You're
it.
feeling me? Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
His frustration from that would be taken out on me. And I'm like, that's like, I'm trying here, but like you can't do what needs to be done. So like, that's not
Yeah,
my
he was
problem.
projecting. He's
Yes.
projecting, yeah, and shameful. He's shamed.
Yeah.
If he
Yes.
feels that, not that you were doing
Yes.
it, but he's just
Right.
feeling it. Hmm.
Yes. And he, tried medications. That wasn't working. So I'm like, listen, like, I don't know what you want me to do here, but I love you. So if this is the way it's got to be, it's the way it's got to be. Like, he would get more and more angry. One night, my son came out of his room because he heard my ex-boyfriend from the other room tell me to shut my fucking mouth, you stupid C word. And my son, who I would always hold back and say, stop, stay out of it. Don't do anything. Like, I can't break up a fight. Stop. And I was like, that's it. Like, I need somebody to protect me. And if that's going to be my son, that's who it's going to be. And my son went into the bedroom and he like put his arm like to block me, and he looked at him as my ex-boyfriend is laying on the bed, and he said, and my son never would use bad words in front of me, and he said, if you ever talk to my mother like that again, he goes, I swear to God, I'll break your fucking neck. Don't ever talk to my mother like that again. And so he said, what are you going to do, little boy? What do you think you're going to do, Benjamin? You're not
Oh
going
my
to do
God. You must
shit.
have been freaking out. You must have been freaking
I
out.
said to him, don't you ever my son like that again, ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you can say and do what you want to me, and I will cry and I will get emotional, but when you mess with my kids, and I will do some damage. Don't mess with my kids.
Yeah. Damn right.
And my son said to me the next day, Mommy, I can't do this anymore. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I can't be here anymore.
Mm.
So he wanted to go stay with his father, and that killed me because I lost my
I was going
son.
to ask you. Yeah. So in that moment, did you feel like it was an ultimatum where it's him or him, your own son?
In a way, yes, but in a way, again, I needed somebody to pay the rent. And at that time, I was working part-time in a grocery store and going to medical assisting school. I was making 10.25 an hour. I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't do anything. Even though I was living on food stamps, I couldn't do anything. So my therapist said, listen, you got to fake it to make it. You're going to get out. You're going to fake it to make it. You have to just play along and keep your head down low and just bide your time until you can get out. And that's what I did.
Was he
And
ever
so,
physically abusive, or was it just
um,
verbal?
a
That's
lot,
bad
there was,
enough. I'm not.
yeah, no, there were times where, yeah, so we had the place where we were living in, he kept falling behind on the rent. Like I paid all the other bills. Like I would obviously food stamps, I would buy the groceries, and then like I would pay like the Wi-Fi, and the cable. He paid the
Mm-hmm.
rent.
Mm-hmm.
So the relationship was ending. Like 2 years in, I mean, there was no relationship. Yeah, we would go places together. He was my boyfriend, I was his girlfriend. We would hold hands, but we were roommates. And he said, if I'm going to pay the rent, I'm not getting out of the bed. And I was like, but we're not intimate, and I can't have you in my bed. Like this is my bed. You like all of this stuff that we have is mine because you came in with nothing. Everything we have down to the fork and spoon is mine. This is my
Mm-hmm.
bed. Well, if you want me to pay the rent, I'm sleeping in the bed. So I got a big long body pillow. And I said, okay, this is where the line is drawn because you're not coming on my side of the bed. And that's how we lived. So he stopped paying, like, kept falling behind the rent. So we had to get out again. So now I moved a half hour away from my son, and that killed me. And I said to my son, do you want to come? It's a bigger house, da da da. It's really nice. And he said, no, I can't be near. No. But I would still hang out with my son. I'd go see him. Like, we would do things. My older daughter and her boyfriend, they moved in with us. And I remember every time that my ex would do something, I would record it of what had happened because I said to my sisters, if anything happens to me, it's either or it's my ex-husband. We were upstairs, and my older daughter and her boyfriend were downstairs. And in Pennsylvania, we have concealed carry, and her boyfriend had a gun. My ex-boyfriend had shoved me across the room. I fell to the floor and I started screaming, stop putting your hands on me. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, he went downstairs and he was causing a scene. And my daughter's boyfriend came out of the room and said, I'm telling you, I'm going to give you one chance. If you put your hands on her again, I promise you, this isn't going to end well for you. At that point, we had like this little shed outside, and he would spend his nights in the shed. He would go out there tinkling around, and I went to bed alone every night. But at that point, John and I were already communicating. We were not in a relationship. We were roommates. So I was not cheating. I was not doing anything wrong. I was faking it to make it. At that time, John and I would FaceTime all night long. And it was like the time had just
Your
never,
light. It was your light
yeah.
in the darkness. It was your
He
light.
he
Mm-hmm.
he came into my life at a time where Like I've said so many times in my videos, like, yeah, I'm Jewish, but I'm so not like, I'm not religious. I'm more like, I'm all about like spirituality and good vibes. And I'm very proud to say that I'm Jewish because my grandmother escaped a concentration camp, and, um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have Hebrew writing tattoos, on me. And, I'm very proud to say that I'm Jewish. Do I practice the religion? No. But in my heart, I'm Jewish for my heritage, and it means a lot. But I do feel like people are put in your place and space and in time for a reason. And I think that the reason why John and I had broken up in 97, not only because, I chased, the bad boy was chasing me, and John was such a good, loving, Italian family oriented, like gentle giant, but
Mm-hmm.
somehow, some way, from Pennsylvania to Alabama brought us back together. And we would FaceTime every night. And when I would come home from work, I'd call him and we would talk on my travels. And we would send songs to each other all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
my therapist knew about it, and she said, just be careful. John and I were talking, and it was around like October of 2019. And he called me and he said, guess who's coming up north? And I said, are you kidding me? He's like, I got to come up for a wedding in Jersey. And I said, oh my God, because we haven't seen each other like in person. And he's in the other room. And
He hears you.
so, yeah, he's listening. So, like, you can just see how, like, just talking about it, like, he's the light of my life. He's my home. He's my home. So, he said, but it's not till
You're gonna
August. I
make
said, you
me
got
want to
to.
get. You're gonna make me want to get back on Bumble, Suzanne.
Well, that's.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Listen, I have a friend back home who is getting married because I made him get on Bumble. And it's so sad I can't go to his wedding because it's when my next surgery is going to be. And I was texting him and I said, like, Rob, I can't come home. And he's like, if it weren't for you. I said, no, if it weren't for you. He said, no, you pushed me to do this. You pushed me to get on Bumble. And because of you, I'm getting married. So yeah, Bumble was a great thing because women make the first, they make the first move.
Mm-hmm.
Bumble was
Mm-hmm.
so empowering to me because I got to choose if I wanted to talk to you or not. That was great. But so
It's
John
been
had,
years, but I mean, just hearing your love story, I'm like, oh
yeah,
damn it,
I know.
damn it, I'm gonna have to do
Listen,
it.
but you know what? When love is right, when you know that it's for you, that's when you know that it's your person,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I went through some, believe me, I went on some dates that are just like, what? Ew, no. But
Yeah.
so John had to come up to New Jersey and I was only 2 hours away in Pennsylvania. So, but I had to wait till August and this was in October. He was coming up, it was supposed to be April 13th. And I said, he's like, I'm gonna get you a room and you can come and stay. I said, okay. So I didn't tell my ex-boyfriend. I said, I'm gonna be gone for the weekend and I'll be back. He's like, where are you going? I said, it's none of your business. You're not my boyfriend. Well, where are you gonna be? I said, it's none of your freaking business. I'm going away to go see friends. So I drove to Jersey on April 12th to surprise John. I wasn't supposed to be there till the 13th.
You were too
So I remember
excited.
yeah, but I wanted to
Oh
catch him
yeah.
off guard.
Mm-hmm.
So I got all dolled up, and I made the drive to the hotel. And, he drives a big white Suburban with Alabama plates. I'm like, it can't be hard to find. I'll drive around the
Mm-hmm.
parking lot. I'm driving. He's like, where are you going? And I said, oh, I'm going to go meet my daughter, Jordan. I'm going to go meet Jordan and Richie for dinner. And where are you going? I'm like, oh, I named a restaurant that was back home somewhere. I'm like, all right, listen, let me follow the GPS because I didn't know where I was going. I'm like, I got to follow the GPS. I'll call you later. He's like, okay, I love you. I said, I love you too. And so I took a picture by his license plate and I said, come find me. Ding Dong was sleeping because he had
Oh
made a 15,
no.
yes, he had made a 15-hour drive and he wasn't expecting me till the next day. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
damn it. So one of his kids had called and said, Daddy, like, you need to wake up. And he calls me and he's like, where are you? I said, what do you mean, where am I? Like, look at your phone. And he's like, you got to be kidding me. And all of a sudden I hear from the way off in the dark parking lot, he's running in his sneakers and weren't even tied. And he just scooped me up into his arms and just kissed me. And it was like something out of a Lifetime movie. Everybody tells me, your love story is like a
It
Lifetime movie.
is.
And it was like, it still makes my heart flutter. And we spent those few days together, me, his two kids, his mother, who was like a mother to me back in the day in the 90s. And they went to the wedding. They're like, you should have brought her. I'm like, well, I wasn't invited. So what? They went to the wedding and they had a great time. And I stayed in the hotel. And I said, I don't want you to leave. So he said, I'm going to stay an extra few days. So he told his job, I'm going to stay in Jersey a few more days. And when I had to leave to come home, I said, I can't do this. Like this, I need to be with you. My kids would tell him stories that when I was married, that I would say to their father, John would never do that to me. John would never treat me that way, because my ex-husband was so jealous of John because they knew each other.
Yeah, so you could get back at him, but you really meant it though. Yeah,
I
so
oh I for sure meant it.
yeah.
Sure meant it, just to dig at him, because I knew that like that was the way to hurt him. So they were like, so this is the notorious John. They knew who he was. And so 3 weeks later, I flew down here. I said, I miss you so much. I can't take it. I took some PTO from work. At that time, I was a certified medical assistant. I was working in dermatology back in New York. I said, I'm taking some PTO and I'm flying down here. And I flew down and I said, this is where I need to be. So we made the plan of getting me out of there. John arranged for me to have one of those U-Haul pods, packed up all
Uh-huh.
my stuff.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was, is I can remember we had the Ring doorbell at the time. Well, I was still living with my ex-boyfriend and my daughter he's like my son-in-law because he's the father of my grandson. And she called me at work. She's like, "You've got to come home." I said, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Gone." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "He turned off the Wi-Fi, so we couldn't see what he was doing in the Ring doorbell, and he cleared house and left." I said, "You've got to be kidding."
He took all your stuff?
No, he took his stuff, but what he
Okay,
did was,
good.
I have photo albums like this. I'm an 80s and 90s kid. I have photo albums. This
Yeah, me too.
this idiot took out photo albums from when I was like 14, 15, and 16 years old, lined them all up on the bed, and said, it wasn't even pictures of John. It wasn't even John. It was like a boy that I dated in like 8th and ninth grade, and said,
Oh my
hope you enjoy
God.
your new relationship. I'll always love you, la la la, and packed up his stuff and left. And I was like, well, he made it easier for me.
Hell yeah, he did.
Yep,
And then
yep.
your eighth grade boyfriend too apparently made it easier for you. What
Oh,
the
such an
hell?
idiot. Such an idiot.
What?
Yep. John flew up to get me, and we drove back down together. And I've been here now 2 years this past January. Reunited after
Wow.
almost 30 years. Yeah.
Reunited and it feels so
And that's
good.
exactly the TikTok video that I made, because when we got married, I made a TikTok video of photos from when we were kids. And then I played Reunited behind it to where we are now. Because when I got cancer, I said, if something's going to happen to me, I want you to be able to make the decisions, because I don't know what's going to happen.
We're about to get
Okay.
really heavy. You can take a pause and come back and film part 2. It's up to you. I'm game. I do it at my house, so I don't care. Whatever you feel like doing, I want
I,
you to be
I,
ready.
I, I could do it now.
All right,
I came
let's.
prepared. My box of
Yes, you
tissues.
did.
So then my life changed.
When did you find out you had breast cancer?
So I moved down here
Okay.
January of 2022.
Hmm.
June of 2022, I had to have a hysterectomy. And they said, because of my family history, they didn't want to put me on hormones. Let's see how you do. Some people react well and they don't get hot flashes and they don't get mood swings and they don't get all the things that come along with it. I said, okay. So I had my hysterectomy, and about a week later, I was laying in bed And I remember feeling like I was lit on fire from my toenails to the top of my head. It was the most excruciating pain that I've ever felt. I didn't know what was happening. My skin felt like I was being burned. And John wasn't home at the time. And my mother in law was staying with us. And I said, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. My heart is racing. I called the doctor, and she said to me in her sweet little southern accent, "Oh, honey, that's your first hot flash." And I said, I'm in
Oh,
pain. I'm in pain. Like, this hurts really bad. It hurts really
yeah, that
bad. I
can't
feel like
be.
I'm,
Hmm.
yeah. So she said, we need to get you in here. Okay. So the next day I went in, and I loved my doctor, but unfortunately he was retiring. So he drew John and I a diagram and said, if I put you on hormones, so which was progesterone and estrogen, he said, if I put you on hormones, it's kind of like feeding the fire that's been put out. I said, okay. He said, you're running a risk. The risk is pretty low since nobody else in your family had breast cancer. Let's just try it and see what happens. We'll put you on very low dose. I said, okay.
Hmm.
And within a few days, I was like, oh. But then the insomnia kicked in, and I was staring at the ceiling every night, crying. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. So they had to play with my meds. And then I was on hormones, and it was great. The hot
Hmm.
flashes were minimal at best, but the insomnia was just terrible. And the mood swings were just out of control. But I had to learn to deal
Were
with it.
you? Were you taking anything for the insomnia? Were you using anything that you found at the store?
So, being a
Anything?
medical assistant, I was working for my own doctor. And I said, can you please help me? So, we tried Ambien. And for me, I had what's called the paradoxal effect, meaning my brain had the opposite reaction to what it was supposed to do. The Ambien made me hyper and made me like bounce off the walls. It's the same thing. Like if I was to take NyQuil, I can't take NyQuil. I'm
Hmm.
not like the commercial where you see people drooling and they're like, having the best sleep ever. I tried Ambien. It didn't do anything for me. So then I just started living on Benadryl. Not good. Benadryl has so many bad things. Like they think it leads to dementia and all these things. I'm like, I don't care. I'm desperate to sleep. So then we tried trazodone. Didn't do anything. Then we tried temazepam, which was great, but my body built up a tolerance to temazepam, and it wasn't working anymore. So now I
Hmm.
take clonazepam, and sometimes it helps me sleep, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'll take a Benadryl on top of it. I shouldn't, but I do, and I go to sleep. But with menopause came really bad brain fog and stuff. And the weight I just ballooned from the weight.
From the medicine? That did the medicine cause
From
the
menopause.
weight
From
gain?
menopause. From
From
menopause.
menopause. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
So all of a sudden, I was getting like this belly fat that I never had before. So before I had kids, I had made a video yesterday about it on my TikTok actually. Um, Before I had kids, I'm only 5'3". So before I had kids, I was 127 pounds. When I had my first one, I was 215 pounds. So the doctor's like, you are gaining like too much weight. I'm like, it's fine. I'm skinny. It's gonna come off. It's fine. It's fine. Three kids later, three C-sections later, the weight never came off. I was always stuck with the belly. So then in 2008, I had a botched tummy tuck. Worst mistake I ever made because it
All
just,
right, wait.
it,
I want to hear about this.
uh-oh.
I want to hear about it.
Uh-oh.
I
Okay.
well, hold on. The reason I want to hear about it is because I've always been a thicker person. Just that's just me. I always wanted to do a tummy tuck. I never have,
Yeah.
but I always
Hmm.
wanted to. And so how old
I
were
had a
you?
botched. God, how old was I in 2008? Somewhere in my 40s. I can't, don't ask me the
Yeah,
math.
yeah, yeah.
I said, okay, I'm going to have a tummy tuck. So, I did a lot of research, and I had like just this belly that hung because of the tummy tuck. So I found a doctor, and he said, "Oh yeah, we'll make you look great. We'll remove all this weight." And I said, "Okay, great." When I woke up, I said, "Oh my God, all the fat is gone." So I had drains, and it was awful, and
Hmm,
it's one of the most excruciating surgeries that you can have.
really?
So yeah, because all like the nerves and tendons and muscles and everything gets cut and removed, and so they wound up removing 7 pounds of fat from my belly. But he left me with these chunky side handles. So I remember going to his office and saying, why are these here? He's like, oh, those are just called dog ears. They'll go away. They never went away. So he like tortured me in his office and like would lipo with just a syringe. It was awful. He would numb me with like
Oh
lidocaine or
my
something.
God.
Yeah, like I had actually written to the show Botched. I said, I want to get on your show. They never replied. He was supposed to go in and like corset the top of my belly to pull in all those muscles, but he didn't. So I was always left with like this hard beer belly, kind of like you could punch me in the belly and it was just hard. He never removed like that internal fat, and I had signed a waiver saying that I won't come after him. I won't sue him. So yeah,
Wow. Is this guy
yeah.
still practicing? Is he still out
I
there?
don't know. He's still out there. He's still out there. But I signed a waiver. So I was always very self-conscious about it. So I tend to gain weight in my belly and in my butt. And I always liked my butt. So it was okay. But the belly I always hated.
Mhm.
So with my ex leaving came depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And I would eat my way through everything. I was a very like emotional an eater. I was a closet eater. I was a secret eater, and I started gaining weight. But the heaviest that I ever got was probably maybe 160 pounds. But 160 pounds and
Mhm.
5'3" is obese.
Mhm.
And I would always hide behind sweatshirts and stuff. And my sister would say, "It's 90 degrees outside and you're in a hoodie." I'm like, "You mind your business. I'm fine."
Yeah, stay over
Um,
there. I'm good.
yeah, I'm good. Just don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm dying and melting under here. But so when I went into menopause, the weight just ballooned. My cheeks got out to here. Um, and I've said so many times on my TikTok that I've lost 72 pounds and nobody's asked me how, but I lost it on Manjaro. And
Okay. Oh, that's what I'm on right now. I'm on that.
okay,
And mine
good.
was because of diabetes. It was because of
Well,
that. It was brought on.
so my mother had diabetic complications. So she had like her whole family had diabetic disease. So when I had gone for blood tests, my doctor, who I said I worked for, said your A1C is through the roof. And this is when Mounjaro and Ozempic and Wegovy and all of these things came onto the market. And he said, we're going to put you on this because you're pre-diabetic. So I wasn't doing it for weight loss. That was part of it, but it was because I didn't want
Yeah.
to drop dead. I didn't want to have to like rely on insulin. It was from October to January, and I had lost like 30 something pounds, and it was great. And then my insurance changed and said, no, you can't have it anymore. You have to go on Ozempic. And Ozempic didn't do anything for me. Manjaro turns off that craving, turns off that desire in your brain.
Okay.
Where Ozempic
Mhm.
didn't do that for me. I would still say, I can eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's. Ozempic never made me feel like I had enough and push the plate away, where Manjaro did.
I think I'm
But when
reversed. I'm
really,
reversed. I am reversed. Yeah, because Ozempic worked well for me, but
hmm,
I couldn't get it anymore. It was like
right,
back ordered. So my
yeah,
doctor's like, you need to get on something, and we're not able to
hmm,
get you on this because everybody's
right,
buying it. So they
right.
flipped me and put me on
Put you on
Manjaro, and
Manjaro.
I don't
Hmm.
think it. I don't think it works as well for me. Yeah,
So what
but
dose are
my
you
doctor
on?
won't push me back.
Yeah, what dose are you
I
on?
think I'm at like on. Yeah, I was on two. I was at two
2.5.
on Ozempic. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
so I was so when my insurance started over again that January and they said, "No more Manjaro." I said, "What?" They said, "But you can have Ozempic." I'm like, "I'll try it." So I went on the Ozempic and I had to stay on it for a year. And I probably only lost like maybe 20 pounds in a year. I was so frustrated. Then
Me
when I
too.
married
Same.
John, when I married John, his insurance said, "Oh yeah, you could have Manjaro." I'm like, "Yes." So now
Right.
I went from 215 and I now weigh 142. So I saw my doctor last week and I said, I just want to lose a few more pounds. I need to lose some of this belly fat that won't go away. It's called visceral belly fat from menopause. I said I want to lose some of the belly fat. John thinks I'm too skinny. Um, but I said I want to lose like a few more pounds and then I'll go down to 2.5 just as maintenance. The pharmacies know they'll give it to the people that really need it first before the people that are just on it for weight loss. So that's why,
Mm-hmm.
Eli Lilly came out with Zepbound. So to help it, because that's just written for weight loss alone. Wegovy is the same thing as Ozempic, just meant for weight loss. So yeah, the Mounjaro has worked for me. So I had started taking the Mounjaro, and I had lost probably at that time 35 pounds. I was in the shower, and I happened to just be washing, and I have hair extensions, and I'm moving my
Mm-hmm.
extensions out of the way, and I'm washing, and I said, "What is that?"
Oh,
It's
you
probably
found it
nothing.
yourself.
I find it myself because every year since my 30s, I've gone for mammograms because of my grandmother dying of breast cancer, and I was always told, "You're clear, but it's dense cystic breasts." Dense cystic breasts. So whenever I would get a period, I would feel the cyst in my breasts. And it didn't click to me like, well, you don't have your period right now, so why would you be feeling anything? I
Uh-huh.
thought nothing of it. A couple weeks go by, I'm in the shower again, and I said, it feels like it's getting bigger. And it was literally like right here in the axilla. And I called my husband and I said, John, come in the bathroom. And he said, what? I said, do you feel that? And he said, yeah, what is that? I said, I don't know, but that's not supposed to be there, John. He's like, you sure? I'm like, well, they used to tell me that I had dense cystic breasts. That doesn't feel like a cyst. That's getting bigger. I called my gynecologist and they said, you need to get in here now because you're on hormones. I said, oh my God. So they said, we need to send you for a diagnostic mammogram. That's different than a regular mammogram. And I
Why?
said, so a regular mammogram is just to check you, make sure there's nothing there. I went to the doctor, they felt something. And now when you go for a diagnostic, they need to see what is there. They need to diagnose something that was found. And I said, oh my God. And they said, we're going to have you have an ultrasound. I said, okay. So they got me in right away, did the mammogram, and then I had to go to the next room and have the ultrasound tech do the ultrasound. And, they're not allowed to tell you anything. And I kept squirming every time she hit it. And I remember laying there and just crying. The machine is turned, you can't see. And I said, I know you can't tell me anything. And she said, no, I'm so sorry. And I said, can you look at me? And she just looked at me and she closed her eyes. And she said, we'll send the report to your doctor. And I knew. I said, oh my God, I've got cancer. And John was waiting for me. And I walked out to the car and I said, I know they're going to tell me. He's like, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's nothing. And I said, John, I've got cancer. And then it was just just a snowball effect rolling down the hill of rush, rush, rush. So then they said I needed to see a surgeon. So he's taking a deep breath in the next room because he's reliving it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I went to our local surgeon and he said, this is too big for me. You need to go. So we live in a small town and we don't really have a lot of doctors here. Most of the doctors are in the bigger cities. He said, you need to go to the cancer center in Rome, Georgia. You need to have a biopsy. And I said, oh my God. Okay. So I made my appointment and I remember it was it's always the nurses and the medical assistants and the care team that are so like the caring ones, the hand holding the ones like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Supportive.
And
Yeah.
right. And that's how I am. And that's why I got into the medical field because I wanted to be there to help people. The lady explained to me everything that was going to happen. And I was having I was having a panic attack and she just, so you get on this table and like, there's 2 holes and you lay your breasts in the holes and you turn your head. And she said, I'm going to be here with you the whole time. And she just rubbed my back the whole time. The doctor came in, didn't even like come around and say, like, hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so. it's going to be okay. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, didn't even introduce himself. Just came in and said, all right, whoever, her name is, and said, okay, and they shot me up with some Novocaine, and that was terrifying. And it's, for me, I need to see, I need to know, I need to be a part of whatever it is that's happening. To have to keep my head turned while he's on my side and I have no idea, and stay still. So it's called a stereotactic biopsy. So they go in and out and they take pieces of whatever they find. And
you're
I just
awake.
remember, you're awake. I think that
Oh.
things that are done to women are barbaric.
That's awful.
I remember having an IUD put in and said, why are women not put in under for this? This is barbaric.
No.
So she's like, just rubbing my back. It's okay, honey. It's okay. I'm like, this hurts. It hurts. He's like, it's almost over. He was very nice, but I couldn't see what was happening. I didn't know when it was coming. And then they leave a little clip in your breast. So when you have a mammogram done, they know that you had a biopsy done in that spot in case it left scar tissue. And I went into the next room. Then they needed to make sure that the clip was in place. They checked everything and they said, okay, you're good to go. We'll have the surgeon or the radiologist look it over and we'll give you a call. It probably won't take that long. And it was like holding my breath for days. So my phone rings on April 3rd, a year ago, this past April, and it was the doctor there. And I called John in the room, and she said, hi, this is Dr. So I can't remember their names. This is Dr. So-and-so. Can you talk? And I was like, oh my God. I said, yeah, I can talk. And she said, so we got your results, and I'm so sorry to tell you, you have breast cancer. And I just remember, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. So she said, it's what's called ductal cell carcinoma in situ. So when something is it's in situ, in situ, meaning early stage. I said, what does that mean? And so she said, it's in your ductals, it's in your breast ducts. So we need to get you out to UAB Hospital, University of Birmingham, and we need you to meet with a cancer surgeon and an oncologist. Right now it's stage 0. And I was like, it felt like when you've seen the movies of like people, like their thoughts of like their life literally like spinning and images and flashing of like, and John's crying and I'm crying and my God, my heart is pounding right now. And he's like, it's going to be okay. Like, no matter what it is, you've got this. And I'm like, John, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I can't die. I just got here. Like, I can't die.